So, Mark, there is a big conspiracy happening in Las Vegas. On the last show, we talked about the 14 best hotels according to Forbes, and then overnight it became the 12 best hotels. They completely eliminated Red Rock as the best overall hotel and Resorts World as the best new hotel. What's going on here?
Obviously, they watch MTM Vegas and they're like, "Wow, those guys nailed it. We really shouldn't have put these so high." I don't know. That's pretty bizarre.
Yeah, the whole thing is strange. You know, there's conspiracy theories all around. Everybody thinks the fix is in.
No, the checks bounced. Because it's all PR.
So this was earnings week, and MGM and Caesars both released their earnings. We'll talk about some of the key takeaways. We don't dive deep into the numbers here on MTM Vegas, but there were some interesting takeaways. So we'll start with MGM and we'll do Caesars a little bit later in the show. But MGM says occupancy was 92% in the first quarter, average daily rate $258. Now it was 78% last year, so it's a huge increase there. Their margins were up to 38.4% compared to 35%. Basically kind of mirrors the numbers we saw from the LVCVA. Slot wins are up, table game wins are up, MGM doing well. They also said that their China segment's recovering, talked about Osaka, but when it comes to Vegas, everything's on the up and up.
Yeah, 92% like anywhere is just mind-boggling to me. To have midweek and everything to have that kind of occupancy, and it isn't like they've been rolling out crazy amount of comp offers that I've seen or heard about. So it's not like they're backfilling these rooms with a ton of comp people. At least it doesn't seem that way. So it's impressive. One, that they're getting these rates, and two, at that kind of occupancy level is just crazy.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and we'll see Caesars did even better when we talk about them. But back to MGM, a few other things of guidance. They said New York is getting new restaurants. That's according to Mark Meltzer. And they also said there's no timeline for the Cosmo MGM Rewards integration. We had thought it was going to happen in April based on some guidance, and then now it's just no time frame. So I wonder if they're having a problem integrating them, or maybe they feel like identity is doing well on its own. It's a strange thing because it doesn't seem like it should take that long to move Cosmo over to MGM Rewards.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all. Because, I mean, you look at Hard Rock and they take over the Mirage, and day one, they have their rewards program in place. So they must think there's some type of competitive advantage to having these two separate entities set up right now, because I wouldn't think it would be that hard to just roll it in. You already have it built out. You've done this before. You've taken over other properties. Other people have done it in a timely manner, so that there must be some other reason that they can make money off of it, keeping them both going.
Yeah, and again, this is good news for Identity members. Identity has been a little bit more generous over the years with comps, and I'm sure the people who really are invested in MGM Rewards are chomping at the bit to be able to book Cosmo, which, we believe is, or I certainly believe is the best MGM property now that they own it. I don't want to say miles above Bellagio, but I think it's certainly above Bellagio and Aria and the others. So people probably want those comps. So hopefully they'll have some good news, but they said nothing about that. And now let's talk about the hotel that I don't want to name, Mark, anymore, because I'm tired of naming this hotel. The FB. I'm going to call it the FB from now on, because those are the letters on the tower, so that people can't keep saying I say it wrong, even though I'm saying it right. They did announce when they're going to open, kind of. They said that they will open in December of 2023. This means that they're going to miss the big Formula One race, which I'm sure is painful for them. And they also launched a careers website, so you can go check that out, careers.fontainebleaulasvegas.com. Darn, I had to say it. But good news, I guess. We're finally going to get that big blue building open.
Yeah, I'm really shocked that they're not, even partially opening for F1. Just, even if you're opening up certain floors, something along those lines. So they just must be nowhere near ready. And that makes me wonder if you're not able to do even a soft opening or just like a casino floor opening. Are they going to make that December date? Is that going to get bumped back? I really hope it's, early December, so I can check it out when I'm there. Watch, it'll be like the week after I go, so I'll be chomping at the bit to fly back and have to go back in like January or something. But hopefully it comes out on time. I'm just really surprised they couldn't push, at least part of it through for the race.
Yeah, we saw Circa kind of do that, right? They opened their casino first and then their hotel later. And it would be sort of a boom for them to get that open in time for Formula One, but being realistic now, so they're not committing to a date, but at least we know it's going to open in December. And we shared that picture a couple shows ago of what it looks like on the inside, or at least partially.
I can't wait until they open the doors and we can call the front desk and ask them how to say the dang name.
Or we could just call the property in Miami, which has been open since 1954, with that name. Now off to Henderson, and the city of Henderson actually annexed about 300 acres in the El Dorado Valley. That's the land between Henderson and Boulder City, so they're kind of filling that out. But at the same city council meeting, they approved Inspirada Station, and basically they needed to make some zoning changes, and there's a land sale where they're selling land to Red Rock Resorts for the parking garage. That should be the next Station Casinos or Red Rock Resorts property after Durango. Coming up on the channel in the next couple weeks, I'll have a lot of footage. I was out there at Durango. It's looking good. It's progressing along nicely. Inspirada Station looks like it'll be a nice high-end area, and the location's a little weird because they've done weird things with the streets in Inspirada, but I think it'll be popular there as that area continues to grow like crazy. And as a reminder, the M Resort also has announced by the end of this year that they will start construction on their second tower, so things looking up out there.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. You know, the new one's going to have 600 rooms, I believe, if I remember right what I read. And just all these rooms that are going to locals casinos, it's kind of mind-boggling that they're able to fill them to a level that makes sense to continue to build them. So I don't know if it's, you know, people coming from other parts of Nevada or people visiting, you know, family in the area, or if it's just like a staycation that's filling these rooms. But I don't get it. It seems, you know, 600 more rooms added, new tower at M Resort. I don't know how they're going to fill them.
Well, that area is booming, and there's a lot of people living there. And, you know, M Resort is a good location for people driving in. It's also the Raiders official hotel, and the Raiders headquarters are right next door. So it's just an area that's probably growing faster than any other area of the valley. And it didn't really have that. We do have locals casinos, things like Red Rock up in Summerlin, Aliante up in the north, other casinos around town, you know, down in you have Sunset Station and the whole Boulder Strip. So there are rooms all around town in sort of local areas. And this area just is newer and it just booms. So I think it makes a lot of sense. And it's good to see them moving into that area. I think people, for the most part, are excited about it. You know, it's going to bring things like movie theaters, I think a bowling alley as well. So some other stuff in addition to the casino. And we know that Red Rock Resorts is moving towards the high end with their properties. That's why they got rid of Fiestas in Texas Station. And what they're building is those smaller wildfire casinos like the new one on Fremont Street. And then their big casinos are going to be higher end like their Green Valley Ranch in Red Rock. So you can expect nice things here. And just from what Durango looks like right now, that's going to compete with those other high-end casinos as well. It looks really great. And the architecture is great. And the traffic out there on Durango, I don't want to spoil too much because I'll talk about it on a future show. It's getting rough out there where Durango Station is and that new Uncommons where the DraftKings headquarters is. I'll cover all that on another show. But good to see they're moving along with that. Did you see that the old, I'm going to say this wrong, Aureale, the old Charlie Palmer restaurant at Mandalay Bay, that's famous because it had that wine tower as you sort of entered with 10,000 bottles of wine. It had been there for almost 20 years and it closed recently, and it's being replaced by Retro by the Voltaggio brothers. And this is sort of like, as you might expect, a retro restaurant. Everything retro is in, and they're serving sort of like old classic dishes served in like a retro style, like casseroles and things like that. Very strange. But the one thing that was interesting in this Eater article, it's on a 1-year residency. When did restaurants become residencies? This term is spreading like wildfire.
Yeah, I noticed that too, that a 1-year residency. It kind of boggled my mind with how in love with residencies Vegas is. Right now these days with acts and now restaurants. So, but I mean, I like the concept. It's kind of unique, something a little different, that you're getting high-end food, but served in a way that makes you feel like you're a kid again, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of unique, something different, but for a year, maybe it's just like they're saying at least a year to build up hype and they'll stay longer, or maybe they'll kind of retrofit everything after that. It does seem like you're putting a lot of time and effort into branding this for it only for 12 months. I don't know.
No matter what they do, that wine tower looks completely different with all those retro items. It completely like changes the feel of that space, which, you know, felt so, I never ate there, but it felt like so high end as you sort of descended down into the restaurant with all those bottles of wine. And now it feels like a whole different place, although the food looks good in that sort of fancy, not fancy kind of way. You know, I don't know how to describe it. Did you see that Rio, the owner Dreamscape, they confirmed a few things this week. They obviously confirmed that they had offered the 22-acre site at the back of Rio to the A's for $1. And as part of that, they wanted to build this pedestrian bridge over the freeway. And they've said that they are planning to do that anyway. And they're really kind of modeling it after the High Line in New York City, which is that beautiful park trail that follows the old railroad tracks down in Manhattan, and it's a great thing. I really love it. I've been on the High Line quite a few times. There's a couple other things there. They said that they plan to take full control of Rio by the fourth quarter, pending gaming approval, and that they've already started renovations on some things like the buffet, as we've talked about on previous shows. The funny thing is, it says the closed areas are not interfering with the guest experience, according to Dreamscape, because I don't know what would interfere with the guest experience. It's so poor at this point. But I like that Dreamscape is thinking different. I like this proposal. And I think this is a sign of what happens when you have developers and companies from outside Las Vegas come in. You get new concepts, and building a High Line over the freeway connecting Caesar's Palace to Rio is a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, they need to get some pillows. There's number one for the customer experience. But hey, I like the idea. I mean, I've been on the High Line in New York quite a few times, and it's cool. But they repurposed something that was already there. So I don't know. I'm kind of skeptical that this gets built, because it seems like a lot of, it's starting from scratch, a lot of money, a lot of investment, a lot of time. To get that walkway built up. I think it would be really cool to have. They'd have to cover it somehow, because peak summer, nobody's going to be walking on that thing unless you have shade built in some way along it. But another dagger through the heart for the A's to be beloved by the city, that they turned down the dollar first, and then they were to have a way for people to walk from the Strip to the games, which was probably one of the issues they were thinking about for that area. So just another reason to hate on the A's, right?
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people are hating on them these days. There's news that $500 million bill, where they want to basically get sales tax revenue and revenue generated from their stadium district back to back their $500 million in bonds. That's the public financing aspect. It hasn't been introduced in the state legislature. They're running out of time. I think they have about 40 days before the session is over. So we'll continue to look at that. A lot of backlash coming, but a lot of people called us out for not properly saying how the public financing was in the last show, but it's still public financing. They're still taking those taxes away. That land could be used for other things, which will generate taxes, which will go to the local community where they want it all going back to them. So that's basically how it's going to work. Now, speaking of not public financing, Vegas Loop once again expanded their map. Now, they only have, 4 stations at this point, and it seems like every couple of months they keep expanding, even though they haven't really started building much. The Westgate station is under construction. Encore scheduled to start construction soon. And then as of now, only the Resorts World and the 3 Las Vegas Convention Center stations are open, but they are now expanding up to 69 stations. And the good news is the Clark County Commission approved this, and they approved 25 additional miles of tunnels. This is actually good. It'll give the system more redundancy and probably less chance of traffic jams. And if they have to take a tunnel offline for maintenance, you'll have alternate routes. So it seems like it's a better solution. Boring is paying for all of this. The casinos and the station owners pay for that part of it. So it's not public financing. So I fully support this. I think we're going to get some version of it, but it's been a few years now since the convention center opened. So they really got to get moving on it.
Yeah, it's good. The Vegas is just going to be a system of tunnels that people live in pretty soon here. It's crazy how much they're adding. It's basically like double the amount of mileage in just 18 more stations. But like you said, redundancy is a big key. I mean, how annoying would it be? You get off the streets, you go into these tunnels to try to beat traffic, and you get stuck in like a traffic jam down there for an hour or something. So they definitely need it. You have to have different options in case something goes wrong. So I see why they're building it out. I just, how long is this going to take? It seems like it's moving slowly at a glacial pace. Hopefully we get there. I don't know.
Yeah, the original system was supposed to have automated vehicles, bigger vehicles, and they said the tech wasn't ready when they opened it. But here we are several years later, we're not hearing anything new, so it's still just going to be Teslas and tunnels. You wonder, if the future will bring larger vehicles and what that possibly could be. But for now, it's just basically an underground taxi system. They did say some sample fares, which, I'll take this with a grain of salt. We'll see what the actual fares are when they actually build this out. But they said from the airport to the convention center, 4.9 miles would take you 5 minutes. That'll cost $10. Convention center to downtown, 3.6 miles would cost you $6. And the only other thing to know about this is this was approved by the county commission. There are other stations in Las Vegas that need to be approved by the city of Las Vegas, but most likely that's going to happen. So yeah, we'll see. I want to see like a good group of these main tunnels start getting dug so that we can actually get a system, because right now it's basically just serving the convention center, and those expansions at Westgate and Encore, same thing. They're just cutting into the convention center. So it's not really what they think it is, but they're paying for it. So I hope it works.
Yeah, I mean, it's a wait and see approach right now. I don't think that those prices or the time is going to be accurate, but we can hope. We can hope and we can dream.
And hoping and dreaming. That's what Caesars did. That's what El Dorado did when they bought Caesars. And there's some good news for them. We talked about MGM 92% occupancy in the first quarter. Well, Caesars 95% occupancy in the first quarter versus 83% last year. 21% of their rooms were occupied by convention attendees. And their same store EBITDA was up to $958 million from $296 million last year. They said their average customer is more affluent, spending more money. And what was really interesting is they talked about what their assets were doing before they bought the company and merged with El Dorado Resorts. The EBITDA was $2.9 billion for those assets before the merger. Those same assets are generating $4 billion. That just shows you how well they are doing. They also paid off the loan on the Caesars Forum to save on interest. So, it's a lot of spin, but it seems like they are doing pretty well.
Yeah, now put some money back into your product. Like let's update some things and, keep the front facing areas looking good, clean them up. If Circus can do it, you can do it too, Caesars.
And there was a little news about the Versailles Tower at Paris. Obviously, before the earnings a couple days, they announced that. We talked all about it on the last show. So if you want to see the renderings and everything else and all of the details, check that out. But as we speculated, the reason that they're taking that old Jubilee Tower from Horseshoe, moving it into Paris, is room rates. They said Paris, with all the investment they made with the new restaurants and all of the new public areas, is just doing really well. Room rates are up there, and they think that over time they'll be able to do really well with increased room rates in this property. Plus, adding the Bellagio fountain views, said that that's going to be one of their best room products in the entire portfolio in Las Vegas. They're really bullish on that move. Also said that they're going to add some new restaurants to Flamingo's frontage, but don't expect much else beyond that in the near future as far as what they're doing. And like you said, hopefully they throw some paint on some of the buildings. In Paris is balloon and some of the maintenance that hasn't been so well done over the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's desperately needed, and I'd love to see some of the older properties like Flamingo get some refresh, get some new dining options in there. It's all been there forever and older, so reinvest some of these pot full of money that you're getting from people. Like, give us a reason to keep coming back.
And the last little bit from their earnings call that I kind of picked out was that their promo as a percent of handle, basically what they're spending out on comps and stuff, was 1.25%, which they say is dramatically lower than their peers. So if you think Caesars Rewards has been less rewarding lately, this seems to indicate that. Although, as you see by their occupancy rate, they're not struggling to get people in. So why would they pay out more money in comps? But just the reality that as room rates rise, as these hotels are fuller, you're going to get less, generous offers. And I'm staying here at Wynn, and the cash rates, man, are just incredibly crazy. I got 4 free nights here from doing that status match at Oceans in Atlantic City. The cash rate for the 4 nights I'm here, $3,500. So I'm enjoying it, but I would never spend that to stay here. But we'll have more on Wynn too in a couple weeks. I'll have all about my stay, which I've enjoyed. As people know, that's my favorite hotel here. But don't expect generous comps anymore unless the economy tanks or something and people stop coming.
Yeah, and I used to love Caesar's program and the comps, and they were just overly generous, 10 years ago, and it's chipped away to where it's basically nothing for most mid-level to below players. In that we should notate that those win rates are for like midweek, so it's just extra insane when you throw that in there.
Yeah, it's Tuesday through Saturday, and it does do Cinco de Mayo. And there was a big conference here this week, so that's part of it. But I think the cheapest night was about $400. The most expensive was $1,200, and then there were a couple in between. It's mind blowing how much it costs to stay at some of these places. On a side note, as we go, I did film some rooms. I filmed the room at Harrah's, New York this week. I was down on the South Strip, so I have a lot of updates coming in the next couple weeks outside of our normal stuff. So I look forward to all of that. Plus, like I said, talking about my stay at Wynn and why it is the best hotel in Las Vegas. And, just going down to the Center Strip yesterday, to the Harrah's area and that whole area, and then coming back to Wynn, it's just so nice and calm up here. It's like a nice respite away from the madness, and I do love it for that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing a lot of that stuff. My favorite tacos on the North Strip. I finally tried Pizza Cake as well. I have a lot to say about their pizza, and a lot of updates from the South Strip. So look forward to that coming in the next couple weeks. We'd love to discuss everything we talked about here, the earnings, Rio, that bridge, will it make a difference? Fontainebleau's opening date, are you excited? December, coming soon. Hit us up in the comments. We do 2 shows a week, Tuesdays and Fridays, and we'll be back in just a couple days with another show. Thanks so much for watching. Talk to you next time.
It's FB, Shawn. You gotta say FB from now on.
Sorry.
Have a
Yeah,
good
I
week,
do.
everybody.